This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me because I have a chat with Matt Nardo from Leviathan Project to share with you. His musical co-conspirator, Tommy Krash, has featured twice on the podcast, so it was time to get to the bottom of things with Matt in this long overdue conversation. Leviathan Project was my number one in the Scars and Guitars year-end Best of 2021 Top 10. Their music revolutionises the standard thrash and heavy metal template by turning a tried and tested approach to metal into something new and very exciting, it must be said. In this conversation, we cover all things Leviathan Project, including Matt's thoughts on ex-Judas Priest frontman Ripper Owen's vocal performance across many of the cuts that feature on the superb album Sound of Galaxies, and also the magical soloing of Death alumni Bobby Koeble, among some other pretty worthy subjects that I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to. So before we get to the chat, I have selected a tune. It's the one that got me into the group. It changed the game for me. The tune is titled Solar Storm. Once it's finished, we'll dive into the conversation. Let's go. how's things?
Hey, good. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm sorry for the technical difficulties and the couple minutes late here. Apologize.
Oh, mate, don't worry at all. Gosh, I'm doing this long enough now to know that if we even connect, it's something of a minor miracle. Given I never forget the fact that we're about 10,000 kilometers away from each other. So
I am very grateful for you reaching out. Number one, and it's funny. I'm living the dream because this is where all the magic happens. I have like a little, room space down in my basement, and I've been working from home over the COVID thing, fiasco, if you will.
Oh yeah, it is.
And it's crazy, I know.
Yeah,
and it's a little disheveled around here now, but yeah, I use this for my workspace, my livelihood space, plus my, love of music. So it's all inclusive, man.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you're not wrong about COVID being a bloody fiasco. We're just coming out of it now. And I think Florida and where I'm from, or live in Australia, Queensland, it's fairly similar. Healthy cynicism, I call it, toward big government and the ideals of big government toward locking down citizens. And as you probably have seen, parts of Australia were locked down like very similar to California and state of New York.
I heard.
Yeah, it's disgusting, mate. And I've talked about it a lot in the podcast, and people even messages saying, "Shut up, mate! Don't want to hear you talk about it anymore." Piss off. We've got to talk about these things.
I'm for freedom. And a lot of people might view this country, I think, sometimes as the chest beating country of the entire world, and blah 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 blah. But hell, it's given us some great music.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Australia, AC/DC, and many others. But no, I'm with you. You start taking my liberties away, and not to get too political, because look, I really want to try to be in the middle, because here's the deal. I'll quote Lionel Richie. I really don't want to alienate any of my fans. You know what I mean? All 10 of them or whatever that I have. But anyway, I digress. I'm kidding.
Same for me. Don't worry.
No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you for sure.
Oh, mate,
sure.
What do we do? I mean, there was a few positives to come out of it. One of them was that I got into you guys, yourself and Tommy's magnificent project, Leviathan Project, and it was just such a wonderful surprise when I think it was Chipster PR that sent it across to me originally. And I must get, no joke, I would get something in the vicinity of hundreds of new releases each week.
Wow.
It's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, being in Australia, of course. Most of the PR agencies are in Europe and the US. So I've got like 100 emails or whatever, and I just scan them. And it was one of those ones. Chipster generally are on the money, you see. So that's why I clicked on a Sentient Ruined, Chipster. There's a few that are on the money, and I always sort of make a point of, let me have a listen to that. From the first 15 seconds of hearing your music, I knew I was listening to something that was going to change my listening habits, if you like. I'm a mature listener, but first time I heard Leviathan Project, I was like, this group combines everything that I dearly love about heavy metal into one package, and I've got to hand it to you. You're the first group to do so.
I'm grateful to you. I mean, I'm a fan. Just like you. I mean, honestly, the only difference between probably you and I is that I have like this idiot savant kind of thing going on where I can hear a melody. I don't know. You probably could too. Did you ever try?
I'm a musician, and
you
occasionally,
are. I'm sorry. Pardon me.
Occasionally, no, all good. Yeah, occasionally it happens. It's just not where I've dedicated my focus. And part of that, to be honest, is when I hear a group like what you guys do, I just think, well, I don't feel like as though that's where my talent is really sort of drawn to. I'll focus on other areas that journalism pursued, namely, and also play a lot of covers. I love just performing. That's
I like it. Yeah,
the main thing. Yeah, recording and doing that stuff. It's just never really been my bag. If you make sense, it's not my calling in some ways. I don't know. It's just the way things have evolved.
You are a musician. That's great. I didn't know that. Forgive me. I should have probably read up on your CV a little bit more there.
No, that's all good. It's no worries at all. Yeah, it's just listening to Leviathan Project though. It's one of those musical accomplishments that I just felt compelled to share with the world. So I've already had 2 conversations with Tommy, and I knew eventually you and I would connect. Unbelievably, I'm just not connected to the company that does Ripper's PR in Australia, but he's touring Australia soon on this Metal Gods project.
Wow.
This thing that he's got going on.
He's a super nice guy. I don't know him, but I know that he's always into laughing, and you know what I mean? It seems like he's pretty easy to work with. I mean, obviously, Tommy did most of that communication with him. I just did a lot of the ghost writing. And it's funny, we always kind of look at that. Like, I love a lot of the AOR stuff. That's kind of where my heart, I love metal too. I mean, my gosh, if you looked at some of my CD collection or whatever, I mean, I love the classic stuff. I don't, but when it starts to get into the real heavy stuff, like even the death metal and everything, like I like it, but it's not my wheelhouse. I'm like the pop guy, So when Tommy sent over the stuff to me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, you're conducting the interview. I hope that's okay.
Not at all. No, just it's a conversation. Just take it where you want to go. Go for it.
Okay. But I was grateful because Tommy calls me up and he's like, as he's known as the illustrious TK, whatever. He's like a project manager. He said, hey, I need, I have some great music for this, but I need, I have some ideas for the melody. I have, some lyrics and things like that. Would you like to take a crack at it and just kind of refine it? Do with it what you will. And that started a partnership. We had been in a band before called American Sugar Bitch, actually. And they're like a local Philly band, kind of like punk rock, glam, gosh, a whole amalgamation of things. Thin Lizzy meets Alice Cooper meets Ramones, whatever. So I've always loved that kind of, classic hard rock and stuff. And so Tommy knew that, and he's like, hey, just, take a look at this, see what you can do. So I approached it, when I was writing it, I was kind of like Dio. I kind of had that melodic sense, like Dio meets a Lou Gramm, weird, right? Weird combination. But I think what came out of that was that you had a very Priest-sounding, classic, melodic Ripper that you hear on that release. And I think people have been hungering for that from him.
Yeah, it's easily, in my humble opinion, even including his stint in Priest, it's the best thing that he's done and he's been a part of. And I would have loved the opportunity to have spoken to him about it. Hopefully it comes up when the tour to Australia. Hopefully I can sort of jag a bit of a chat with him about it all, because he hasn't done any interviews on the back of it. And I think that's the one thing that was missing early on, was a conversation with Ripper about Leviathan Project. I understand why these things can't happen. Okay. He's got a million things going on, but
of course. A lot of respect for him, I know. Yeah.
But journalists, I am actually a journalist. That's the thing. These people who get involved in this journalism pursuit, this indie music journalism pursuit, as I call it, they don't dig deep. They don't try to get to the bottom of things. They don't listen to the broad palette of work that someone like Ripper's got out there and ask the questions. And if they had, they would have found Leviathan Project and said, what's going on here with this one? Because I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't done a live show with Ripper?
We haven't, no. It's not something that's off the table completely, but, he's a busy guy. That I think would probably push stuff over the top, but I think it has to work for all of us. Also, Bobby, it's funny, I was listening to the original podcast that when you talked to TK and you had mentioned Bobby and you were a big fan, he's a phenomenal guitar player. I mean, I can hold my own around the strings and stuff like that, but that guy is, talk about a genre defining, shredding, amazing player, not just in metal, but also, I think he's a jazz instructor now. He's phenomenal. Really nice guy too.
Yeah. The other key benefit to Leviathan Project from my ears is that I could never really understand what Bobby's contribution to Death was, because he's only in the band for, probably their best album, by the way, Symbolic.
Symbolic, right?
But you could never work out whether or not his involvement with Chuck was actually all that integral, to be quite honest with you, because Chuck had a lot of musicians come and go, all top quality. It's not about the quality of their performance, but it's whether or not they're creatively that relevant. Yes, he is. And the reason why I can say that is because listening to his solos with you guys, yeah, man, he knocked it out of the park. You couldn't have got a better soloist.
And, he's this guy that just comes in and he's just a natural. You can tell he honed his craft. He's got major chops. But what I like about it is that he puts that really, it's not incomprehensible. Like, I feel like some players, they just spew all this stuff. I feel like he played for the songs, and even though you get a little muscle in there, if you know what I mean, from a guitar playing standpoint, there's lots of guitar players would love that playing, but I think he didn't, it wasn't a bore fest, and that's hard to do when you're shredding,
Yeah, it is hard to do. It's very hard to combine Blitzkrieg's speed, melody, and also heaviness. Yeah. Okay. The three key things that I think all heavy metal guitarists need to have in their kit bag. There's guys like probably the best out there, and I think is Vito Bratta from White Lion.
Oh,
how good is he? And he gave it up. He walked away from the music industry at 91 or 92 or whatever it was. And
he's one of my favorites. Yeah, for sure. Who's my favorite of all time? Is Gary Moore.
Gary. Oh, that comes up.
That's my favorite. He's my hero. Okay, Michael Schenker, Gary Moore. Of course, EVH, you get in. I love the California Sunshine Spirit. He's a great rhythm player too, But for me, Gary had the ferociousness, the melody. He could kill you fast or slow. Fusion. I just discovered him. I discovered him through Vivian Campbell, like so many. And John Sykes and all the other, John Norum, all these disciples of Gary freaking Moore. He got the heaviest tone I've ever heard out of a Fender Strat, a stock Strat. Anyway, he's a beast. But,
he is,
But where I would say the difference between Gary and Bobby, is that I feel like Gary was fighting the guitar, fighting through it. And you had that sheer aggression and emotion. I'm not saying that Bobby doesn't have that emotion, but Bobby is just much more smooth, and he's surgical. He can kill you with that. He builds to the crescendo. It's everything that Gary does, but just he doesn't really. It's so fluid. It's brilliant.
Yeah, very, very, very dynamic guitarist. And I love what you say there about Gary. Yeah, because Gary always reminded me of a boxer when he's up there on stage, doesn't he? Yeah.
Like somebody said to me, yeah, right. I read in an article. Okay, come on. Who am I? I'm some guy sitting and, just on lunch break talking to you. No, but not to undercut it. I've read all things with Gary, particularly that Strat. That always killed me because he's known for Greenie. The Peter Green Les Paul. My God, could you imagine? It'd be like Michael Schenker handing me his Flying V and said, "Listen, kid, I want you to take the reins and go. I see something in you. I'm done with this. You have this reverberating, amazing instrument." And when I was reading about Gary's Strat, I think that Greg Lake had passed on it. Like Greg Lake, Gary was touring with Greg Lake. It was like a fusion type of thing, and he was playing some one-off shows. And I guess they were backstage, and this guy comes in. He's like the Dr. Feelgood of guitars, right? So he brings all this stuff in. He goes, "This is for sale. That's for sale." Greg Lake comes in. He's like, "Oh, hey, mate, blah, 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 blah." And Gary had played this Strat. It was like a 61 red Strat, right? This famous salmon pink Fiesta red. And it was basically stock, and he just played it like this, and it rang. It just rang. And Strats don't usually do that. Not plugged in, just rang. That's the true test for a great guitar, by the way. Unplugged, electric. It just rings and you feel the vibration. Anyway, but what I was going to say is, he said, I guess Greg Lake passed on it because it was a little beat up. And as soon as Greg like left the room, he's like, right, that's mine. And he bought it, he paid for it or whatever, and that became like his Corridors of Power, his Metal Years stuff, his main instrument. And then it was stolen or something, Interpol or something like that. It stole it. But somebody said of him that, just like you had alluded to, and I don't know how Bobby is with this, right? But he's the quintessential introvert. But once you put that guitar on, like it's almost like it was like he'd be moody. Like you'd be talking to Gary and he'd be moody. And he'd be like, what the hell? I just want to express to you that I'm a huge fan or whatever. Oh, thanks, thanks. Yeah. Like that. And then when he got on stage, he was like, you put that guitar on, he's like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Just lays waste, melts faces, everybody. There's a Castle Donington, I think, in '84, where he played. Could you imagine? It was Jake Ely.
Oh, magnificent. Yeah.
Eddie Van Halen and Gary Moore. And I think the Scorpions were there too. So you had all these phenomenal, but that was back when men ruled the world with guitars, and women. Sorry, Lita, but you know what I mean? A lot of people, right?
Yeah, a lot of people, but I love that point you make there about ruling the world with guitars, because go and have a look at how many YouTube hits so many of those videos still get. They're in averaged across. We've had this. I'll make this point before I make the point I was about to make.
Sure.
Urban music, this rap and all this other bullshit, fair enough, whatever. But it's what the media promotes. Okay, rock and metal has been pushed to the side, very much to the side. It's actually not in the mainstream consciousness at all. You will never see it played at any of the American Music Awards or even these ARIAs, the Australian Music Awards, what have you. It just will not happen. Okay, but the fans still love it. The fans get it exactly. Like look at us having this conversation.
Yeah,
so we get it, and there are millions of people like us that will never let guitar music die.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. I think that they took the blues out of music too. Like there's not really a lot of blues if you think about it. And I think that all the rock and the metal and everything was really a blues. It was spawned from that. Just they made it heavier. Tony Iommi knew how to make it heavier. And then on and on and on. But I'm with you, and that's why I'm thrilled to talk to somebody. I always love to talk to somebody that's passionate about music. I get that from you right away. So again, I really appreciate you having a conversation with me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So what I'll do now is I'm going to do a bit of a summary of the releases of the past 12 months for people.
Sure.
So
of course.
Sorry
for that tangent, by the way.
We'll talk about any of this stuff. I can talk about this stuff all day. We clearly both can. It's cool. It's killer.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I want to give people some insight into what you guys have been doing for the past 12 months, because I think my last chat with Tommy was about 6 months ago or so, and there's been maybe one or two releases announced and available since then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've already mentioned that you caught my attention, and the name of the release was through the It's Their World EP last year. And all or most of those songs on that EP, they were released on the full-length Sounds of Galaxies album. And that album also contained tunes from the Edge of Time EP, which I spoke again at length with Tommy about. So for anybody who wants to hear about why there was a release strategy, as I've just outlined, go and have a listen to those conversations there, because Tommy, we dive into a lot of detail on that one there. It's all got to do with working with Deco and the record company, the distributor, that sort of thing. Now, earlier this year, you guys released the Why Are We Here full length, which to my ears, it's ambient meets late night guitar jam in a smoky bar room. That's what it sounds like. I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It showcases a very different side to the group. But now, and here's the killer thing, now we can look forward to the heaviest collection of tunes yet from the group via The Final War, which contains a rawer take, in my opinion, on your signature heavy metal sound alongside, and I do love death and black metal, by the way, so I love the fact that I know Tommy's into it too with the Behemoth. Yeah. He likes Behemoth, and he's introducing, I've listened to it a couple of times, I haven't really sort of immersed myself in it, on purpose, because I want to wait. I want to wait until I've got it, because I've ordered the CD and I want to listen to it in the car and really sort of absorb it that way. I want to.
You're really going to like this, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So that's summarizes, if I'm correct, that summarizes the releases over the past 12 months ago or so. So I may have asked the same question of Tommy, but I'll put it to you. I mean, you guys are creatively. It's all happening, but where are you finding the time to do this? Because I know you're a family man and you've clearly got a job, and I think Tommy's in the same boat. Yeah. So how on earth do you guys find the time to do this?
Late at night. No, it's. I like doing the studio stuff. I mean, it's funny. I just played live with another project a couple weeks ago. My friend Dave Weekly, he has Tommy knows Dave as well. And he's kind of a mentor of mine, but where it comes down to it really now, I'm having a lot of enjoyment in the studio. So to answer your question, I spend time with my family. I have 5-year-old girls. It's their birthday today, by the way. Shout out to Cora and Elise.
Happy birthday, lovely.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're a lot of work. They wear you out, but I wouldn't want it any other way. But I feel like you still have to have your thing. It's what recharges your batteries, and a lot of that, it happens at night. So 10 o'clock p.m., that's it. I'm coming down here, I'm like, oh, that's funny. I was just down here all day working, whatever, but it's different, it's different. It's creative time. It's, and with, like I always say with TK, he's the project manager. I'm so grateful that he's so prolific in coming up with things that it's just so easy for me. I just put the icing down on it. So he'll come up with the structure. He'll send it to me. Hey, this is what I'm thinking here. He'll give me, we'll talk about it. We're pretty close with that. So, we have a nice communication system going on. Sometimes I'll send something to him and it's like, okay, I might not hear anything from him, like feedback. And I'll be like, uh-oh, must have sucked. Or whatever, and that's fine. You know what? Then there's a conversation that happens. Hey, could you try it more like this? We've taken that ego out. But that's kind of where I find the time. I can just work better as I'm a night owl. I always have been.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So on with the tunes that made It's Their World, given it's the one that captured my attention. Which parts did you record? And I know you're both multi-instrumentalists and spend a lot of time in the studio, obviously, but how did you decide who would record which part?
Well, I think that TK is phenomenal, again, with the structure, the rhythm. The whole Leviathan project really started based upon the sounds that he was getting. He wanted those thrash rhythm guitar sounds, like your Testament, Exodus, that kind of thing. But I think that he really wanted the melody. So he does most of the structural, like the rhythm guitars. I might put something like, for instance, in Solar Storm, I did some noises with the guitar, just kind of like screaming kind of whammy bar, weird stuff that was tucked in there. I also played bass on some of those tracks. There's a song called Falling Apart.
Yeah.
That was my bass on that, and he just said, hey, you want to give a crack at this? Sounds good. It's Their World, I think, was my bass as well.
Nice.
So some keys also on those parts, texture and everything. I can play lead. I'm just not really a Bobby caliber lead player. Then again, who is? Sorry, Bobby, it's true. Yeah. I can hold my own with that stuff, and I can do. The other one was. Oh gosh, it's escaping me now. The name of the tune. Here I am, in your anger.
Is that off It's Their World or something else?
It's off the. Actually, I think it's off the second EP that we released. I should know this. I'm in the band. I mean, come on. Have a blonde moment here, man.
The Sounds of not Sounds of Galaxies. The Edge of Time EP. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a song that Ripper did. Oh man. Gosh. Anyway, I did a twin, like a King Diamond-esque harmony. Tommy said, I want something German. I want something, that's going to be a melodic theme, not necessarily, shred, but, just something that gives that like an Andy LaRock kind of feel.
Well, he played in Death as well, funnily enough, yeah.
Yeah, individual thought patterns, right?
Spot on.
I think that
bang on
record.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, that's the other thing about the vocabulary with TK and myself. You're on that same thing. We could be talking about a Journey tune, or we could be talking about a King Diamond song, Lizzie Borden, whatever, a Death tune, and we speak the same language. What are you going for on this? They'll say, hey, kind of like this song. And I feel like in order to be successful collaboration, you really have to be able to speak the same language musically. And I'm really lucky that I found somebody, that speaks that language.
Solar Storm and Leviathan, they're probably on the front page of greatest all-time heavy metal tunes. And they are quintessential heavy metal songs. There is nothing you could add or take away to improve those cuts. When you hit a baseball, and you hit it right off the bat. I play cricket, so but it's the same principle. Okay, you hit it right off the bat, and it makes a sound, and the ball just takes off, it flies. Did it feel a bit like that when you were crafting those two numbers?
You know what? It's funny. I know I keep saying this word. It's going to sound cheesy to your audience, but when I heard it and I heard the playback, I just knew it was the best that we could do. I knew that the influences that we have, they were going to come out, and I knew as a fan, and I know you probably know this feeling too. If you put something in and you listen back to it and you like it, you're hoping that others like it too. Mm-hmm. But I kind of knew, particularly with Solar Storm, I knew that was special. I knew that was a special,
Yeah, that was the first one I heard. And as I said, it's just, okay, here we are. It's right here. It's the only issue is collection of tunes like this, it makes you a bit disappointed in a lot of the other stuff you hear, because it can be done, and then you listen to other stuff you get sent, you think, no, it's not quite there yet. And it might be the production's on point, the musical interplay when one instrument's taking charge and when another sort of steps back it goes back into the background, so to speak. But Ripper's vocal too. He just I think this is not a controversial opinion. I believe he's better than Rob, and I've said that for years, I've got to say. And I know I got into Jugulator when it first came out, by the way, and I remember
I bought that one too.
Yeah. I mean, for years you could only get it on CD. I actually bought it in the United States, funnily enough, and I remember listening to it a lot whilst I was traveling around there just as a tourist or visitor.
Wow.
And I remember just thinking, this guy, the Priests are in really good hands here, even though nobody gives a shit at that point in time, 98 or 99, whenever it came out. 97, wasn't it, I think?
97.
97, yeah. And I mean, there wasn't that. I loved that year for metal because all of the attention was off it. And it was just about what the fans who are in bands creating for fans out there in the audience. That's what it felt like back then.
Yeah, like Nevermore. I remember Sanctuary.
Yeah, magnificent.
All those bands. Absolutely. The melodic sense, they said, screw it. That's kind of what we did. We said, this is never, the market is not there for this kind of stuff. But it comes from the heart because we just wanted to do it. That's what we said, we're musicians. Musicians don't create, because you want to fit into a structure. I always say this, fast food, steak dinner. In the 70s, you could put, on whatever it was that was out there, you got a steak dinner, man.
Yeah.
You got 4-course dinner. Even if it was a pop tune. My God, I listened to the Cars, one of my favorite bands. It's so weird. But and eccentric, but yet they had something that was a hook. And how we approached this was, metal from an, you talk about the structures, one instrument coming in, one instrument coming out, each instrument saying something in its own time and then getting the hell out of there. That's a classic
exactly.
AOR type, mentality. It's just that, it's hooks. From a metal point of view. And I'm hoping that that doesn't deter people from wanting to listen to this, because I think basically a lot of people are going to get something from this, irregardless of what you love, what your wheelhouse is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mentioned this to Tommy. The only thing that I think Deco could have, well, the key thing that I think Deco could have done differently. Great, you get Chipster on board, but this is music that I believe it should be targeted toward the extreme metal fans as well, because a lot of extreme metal fans do love. They go into jazz, they go into blues, they go into all this other stuff. It's just the extreme. They also listen to extreme metal. So I'm like that. So you automatically get called an extreme metal fan. It's like, hang on, that's just one thing that I listen to. I'm just invested in it. But I think Earsplit PR and these other agencies out there that have a dedicated channel for the extreme metal fan. I sent through Earsplit PR's details to Tommy actually last year, and I feel as though if the PR side of things was adjusted just a bit, and you got some of those, they're not fanzines, they're people like me doing podcasts, and they're like reaching out to you guys saying, shit, here it is. Here's the legacy from Testament, but updated. I mean, this is really sort of where it's coming from in a lot of ways, And so that would be the only thing that I would have changed. And as I say, I mentioned that to Tommy, and I mean, you can't do it. What can you do? To your point, you're doing this in your spare time and the like, but it is music that I just wish more people could hear. So did you find, just on that point, and I'll ask a question around the full-length Sounds of Galaxies album. Did you find that was as well received? And now it's been about 8 or 9 months, or maybe less. Have you? I've had it for at least that length of time. But did you find that was as well received as the 2 EPs?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, I'm kind of biased to that one because I had some demo stuff on there where I was singing.
Yes.
And I always have been a fan of complete packages, but, it's funny now people are really releasing stuff just one song at a time, and that, I think, in its sense is, how do you say it? It's, people's attention span really is lacking. Now. Yeah. It's short, but I always like the full length. Now, that's probably, I'm showing my age here, but I like the package, and the actual product and the liner notes and everything else, but some people they just, don't bore us, get us to the chorus, we always say, right? They just wanted to know what the band is about. So they might just want that one song or that short EP burst. With Deco, I gotta tell you, I really think they're a great label. They really have been supportive of us, and I'm grateful to them that they would put something out, like this too. I think that they do a lot of different legacy artists, and gosh, I mean, even Dave Bickler, the original Survivor song, Eye of the Tiger, he's on there. This is more than I could have ever imagined. But to answer your question, I mean, it's just so hard nowadays. And I know that's a cop-out and an excuse, but it's so hard to be able to push this kind of music to the masses. You really have to your point earlier was what you said, you have to really seek this. And I wish that wasn't the case, but hey, it is what it is. I'm just hoping maybe it picks up steam again.Maybe if Ripper does a bigger tour, who knows? I know that he digs it.
Yeah. Did you guys ask him to do any PR around it?
Not at the time, because we wanted to be respectful of him. He had obligations, he had KK's Priest and different stuff like that. So we really didn't want to take away, from him. And this is his livelihood, like I have another gig that I'm doing, to earn the dough. But, we just wanted to make sure that he was comfortable and, be respectful of approaching him. That's not off the table. Who knows with that in the future, with Ripper. But I definitely think that, and I'm putting words in his mouth, but I think he likes the material. I think he really likes the way it turned out.
Yeah, well, as I say, I'm going to find out who the PR company was that gave the interviews recently. It was only about a week ago, 2 weeks ago or so, but you can't know everybody in it, in the industry.
Sure.
You know how it is. But one of my mates, he saw the interview come up, and I've got to hit him up and say, hey, who did that come through? Some of the agencies here are dickheads, so I won't deal with them, to be quite frank with you. It's really hard that way, because they, this is... we do this because we love doing it, and sometimes you don't love working with some people, you know what I mean? And you want to keep that passion with it all. But beside the point, I mean, you can often hit these people up on Messenger or what have you, and as long as you show that you're sincere and you're genuine and you've actually got an audience, and you're not just pissing about in the backwoods somewhere.
Well,
in most
I'll give you an
instances,
example. Here, and I get you 100%. I reached out. I saw Neil Kernon's name. He's a famous producer. He did like Queensryche, Rage for Order, Doc, and Back for the Attack. No, he did. I guess he did Back for the Attack, and the Under Lock and Key. I'm dating myself. I'm talking all this old classic stuff. But, I just said, hey, I'm a huge fan, and thank you so much for accepting my friend request or whatever. And he wrote back to me.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, cheers, mate. Thanks so much for that. That was really nice to hear. Another one was Ole John Roth, one of my heroes, another one of my heroes. Steve Lukather from Toto. He's one of my all-time favorite session cat heroes, all these folks, that they are, to your point, approachable. So, yeah, that might be something, that comes up with it. But, this has been a labor of love. It continues to be. And I told, TK, I said, we should have the Van Halen mentality. Mm-hmm. Dave Roth's dad told him, look, if you want to get out there and you want to do this, you got to have a lot of material in the can. Mm. You can't rest on your laurels. That's what happens to a lot of bands, right? They do their first debut album, it's killer, and then they all look at each other. They start to hate each other because the pressure's on for new material. So I didn't want to fall in that trap. So we are working Final War Plus and beyond, with stuff.
Yeah, that is so true. There are so many sophomore albums, second albums that are garbage, or they're not cohesive, or they don't represent where the band was headed in the first album, which is what got them an audience in the first place. Yeah,
everybody's pooping bricks because they're under pressure now, and it's a drag. So I never really want to be in that position. If we can continue writing on all fronts, TK and I have Infinity Rain, which is another project. Yes, that's like geared more toward the AOR stuff. I do a lot of singing on that. It is what it is. There's lots of ways to keep busy. It's not for the lazy. I think a lot of musicians, and I'm speaking out of turn, they're going to throw vegetables, fruits, and other hard objects at me. But talent is lazy. TK, I was lazy for a lot of years. TK helped me not to be lazy. He keeps me on deadlines. He'll throw subtle hints out there. Hey, any luck with those tracks? I know if I do it with him, it's going to get out there.
Yes.
So it's good. You got to have a strong work ethic.
Yes, that you do. Yeah. Well, you're right about what you say about talent. Talent can be bloody lazy. You see that in football and in sports. There's boom players coming on board, and you're like, wow, this is, especially if you're a fan of a shitty team like what I am, and you and then this boom rookie comes on board and might win an award, a Dalian medal we call it in rugby league here, and but then they're shit for the rest of their career, and you're just like, well, what the hell happened? But they don't work hard enough. They're not studying videos.
That's it. And you hone your craft.
Yes, exactly.
Right? We look at our lofty, I spit a name out like Gary Moore. I mean, I could practice for the rest of my life 24/7, and I could never be Gary Moore. Gary Moore was born to do that, But then again, what you can do is you can pay homage, and you can be a fan, and you can say, I want to, continue that. I mean, we all kind of have our people, our heroes that we want to emulate, but what I like about it is, even though you try to emulate people, you're never going to be them. It just kind of turns into maybe something that people like and something that's different.
That's such an interesting point you raised there about looking up to these let's call them heroes. There's heroes of ours, there's people that we could potentially aspire to be. You mentioned Gary Moore there. Did you see the recent? We're all AC/DC fans. Let's face it. So,
Oh
did you?
my! Oh, forget it.
Did you see the recent Australian Story episode featuring Bon Scott and his family?
I just watched it yesterday, mate. Just watched it.
I knew you would. Yeah, I knew you would have. And my point around that is Bon, I hope you agree with me, or if you've got another opinion, please share it. But Bon Scott, as revered as he is, he didn't even realise he was Bon Scott.
I think that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the key. You take the piss out of it, man. Like, if you're too serious and you take yourself too seriously, I've done it before. I used to go to gigs and be stressed out and be one of those dicks that was like, well, I need to put my pedal board here. I need to do the, And something happened one day, then I got to be like 30 years old or whatever, a couple of years ago. Anyway, no, sorry.
Don't worry.
Yeah, you go like, what's our stage age, right? But no, you go to play the gig now. And I remember the last one we were doing, it was like, oh my God, it's raining out. And somebody sends a text message in the band to us. And it's like a group text like, oh my gosh, there's police action and there's no parking. Good luck finding a parking space. Come on, man. Like, so I just looked at the drummer. I was driving with the drummer. And I said, tonight, screw it, man. We're going to have a good time. I don't care. If you go in with that mentality, or, you got the band ahead of you, that's just, they're a bunch of jerks, whatever, who cares, man? Once you get up there on stage, you just let them have it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You do you. And with Bon Scott, to your point, I watched that, and, you can have a lot of the bad boy imagery and a lot of the stuff. When it comes down to it, these are human beings. And they're insecure sometimes. You would never think of Bon Scott as being insecure, and I don't mean that. I'm such a huge Bon Scott fan. He's AC/DC to me. I love Brian Johnson, but Bon Scott's always going to be it for me. But, it was nice to see him as a human. It gives us hope, doesn't it? For all of us.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why we do this. That's why we continue to make music, and hopefully human to human people can enjoy it. There has to be an emotional connection with music, I think. Even if it's heavy, whatever, it doesn't matter. There has to be some kind of emotional connection with it.
Yeah. I mean, we're invested in it to the point where it's an integral part of our lives. Yeah, I don't know what it is that draws us to music. I love golf, but it was over golf, for example. I mean, there's some people that follow the PGA and they're religious about it, and they know all of the numbers and the stats and the figures, and the players that are just behind that are ready to make the tour, this sort of thing. But we're like that with music. You can tell we're like that with music. I don't know what it is that drives us that way, but look, I digress. I want to ask you I know I'm just conscious of time.
Please, no, you're fine. You're fine. Keep it going. I'm having fun.
Who's singing on the new material, The Final War? Who did you guys get in to do that one there?
That is Tommy, aka TK.
Okay, so he's singing on that one. Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't know if there are other singers, though. We'll have to stay tuned for the further adventures for that. I don't even know that. I think that's top secret information. But yeah, in the Trapped single, the one that was released, I know that's TK.
Yeah, gotcha. I mean, I knew it wasn't Ripper, but I was thinking, wow, okay, it's continuous though. Okay, I mean,
that was the point.
Yeah, it's in the same vein. I like the gruffer aspect of it. I actually think the voice suits the music. I mean, it would have been great if you got Ripper on board too, but Tommy's voice does suit the music. And the other question I had for you was, were the cuts on The Final War, were they completed or near completed when the It's Their World EP and the rest of the canon at that time was released?
I don't want to speak for Tommy, but I think that no, he had an itch that he wanted to scratch because he really loves some of the death metal and some of the melodic, black metal, and he really wanted to take it in a different direction. For this specific release, it's all about being an artist. He really wanted to do this, and I supported him 100%. I said, you know what? This is good. This is a nice turn. And I think what's happening is on the website, you'll see there's actually like if you go on, there's a classic Leviathan, and then there's, the dark, brutal Leviathan. So, again, it's to everything. I mean, we want to try to widen the net. Now, the next release might be more back to the more melodic stuff, so, but I feel like TK just has such a talent for just pulling stuff out of thin air, and we talked about this at length, and he said, I've got to do this. I want to do this. And I said, he said, you know what? I don't know if you're going to like it, but, it's something I need to birth out. And I was like, wow. And I started to listen to the material. And you know what? I actually, don't tell him this, but I actually like it. It definitely has a hook in a different way.
You know? Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's great. So, yeah. What you're talking about Infinity Rain, is there going to be as much of a focus on doing that as what there has been with Leviathan?
It really depends on, like, some days I'll talk to TK and he'll be like, hey, I've been listening to a lot of Foreigner or whatever. Some days he'll be listening to, Candlemass or, who knows, right? Whatever. Celtic Frost, you know what I mean? Like different stuff like that. So what we try to do is, this guy is so phenomenal, in my opinion. I'm really grateful he came into my life, because it's really a juggle. We have a bunch of stuff going on at different times at any given time. But the point is that when he focuses on something, he'll throw a couple of things to me at the same time to work on. And it always gets done. So to answer your question, like Infinity Rain, that I think that's almost in the can. I think we have one more song. We'll have a full-length release on that.
Awesome.
I don't know what's going to happen with that one yet. I don't know if it's going to be a label. We're going to, of course, we'd love it to be a label, But, there's also a new Leviathan, I think, after in the works, too. We're starting to kind of work on that as well. But that's further on down the road.
Yeah.
But at any one given time, it really depends on TK's mood and, inspiration at that moment.
Following the creative muse, that's awesome. And not having the pressure of having to do it either, as in, imagine if it was the main money earner for you both, and the amount of pressure, added the dimension of pressure that it would add. It could ruin it. It'd probably ruin it.
It probably could. And, you get to the point where, and I get it. I mean, there have been times, like on the first, go around with Leviathan. I remember there were a couple tunes and it was like, when do you need this stuff? Well, I need it by the end of the week. And there were like 3 songs or whatever. I think that's how I remember it. It's foggy now. But, I knew I had to bust my hump and get on that and deliver those ideas, so that Ripper could sing on them. And, and Ripper, not to discount, who am I, but, he also added stuff too. Like, he did It's Their World and, kind of wanted to write that song as well. So he was involved in that to a degree.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Look, I'll wrap things up. I've got the Sound of Galaxies album, the Final War album, and I've also got a T-shirt coming in, and I already own this. So,
cool.
I've got a cassette player, so I listen to this one quite a lot, actually. I love the cassette. Actually, I love the way that you guys went down that pathway, because it does bring us back to the 80s, at least when I was last listening to cassettes, as the main medium, because it's on and it stops, and you can choose to actually set the autoplay where it flips over to the other side with my player, or you can just let it. I love that aspect of it, because it's not like these days where you can be listening to music on this thing, the iPhone, and then you can be scrolling through Facebook or some other garbage site.
It's like it commands your full attention, right?
Yeah, it does. It's a different listening. It's like reading a newspaper again or something. And that's really important, because we do absorb different types of media in a different way, meaning that I believe we're more fully immersed when we read from a book, we read from a newspaper, compared to reading stuff on a phone, as it is listening to material via MP3 isn't as high quality, if you like, as if you're listening to it on a CD or on a tape in my case here, or even better, a vinyl. I mean, I love vinyl, sure. But that's there's thanks Adele for the world vinyl shortage at the moment. But yeah, but I mean, I've got these things coming in, and that'll be my message to people, is to support the group. Everybody knows I'm a fan of Leviathan Project. You were my number one release last year. You made my number one release last year, and it's get out there in terms of go to the Deco website. And you've got a bunch of stuff on there. You've not just got the 2 albums, there's EPs and other T-shirts. Tommy's put new T-shirts up there that I've noticed as well. I think there's still cassettes available. So there's still plenty of ways to get into you guys. Thanks so much for coming on, mate, and I'll leave the final words to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this, this we talked about attention span, and, Tommy always said this all along. I remember he did the podcast with you and he said, look, give this your time, put the phone down, just try to immerse yourself in the music. How do people even create when they have the distraction of these phones? And, I'm guilty of that as well. Sometimes I'm there and I'm on the phone, I look at my daughters, and that time is just like sand through the hourglass, and it's so precious. Do yourself a favor, be present. I have to practice what I preach myself. But when it comes to creation and doing this stuff and actually recording things, singing, playing, or whatever, that stuff goes away. And I really wish that the world could kind of slow it down a little bit. Really, look at the art, look at the creation, look at things, look at nature, breathe it in, and realize that that's a beautiful creation too. Let it inspire you. And that's it. We love music. Just keep listening to music. I think it really, and all the garbage that's out there and all the negativity and the wars and everything else, sure, it's important to be informed, but I think that sometimes we need that escape to center ourselves, to refocus and be the best versions of ourselves we can be.
Beautifully put. Matt Nardo from Leviathan Project. What a good fella. I enjoyed that conversation. Do go across to the group's socials presence, Leviathan Project. They are easily found. If you are now curious and want to support the band, I strongly encourage you to do so. They've got a couple of releases in market at the moment. You can buy merch. Mine is on the way, as a matter of fact. I actually already have a couple of their physical releases, or I've got one, sorry. I've got the Leviathan Project, It's Their World cassette, because I love cassettes, but I've also got some CDs on the way because my car plays CDs still, and it does a really bad job with the Bluetooth connection. Anywho, go across to scarsandguitars.com for another reason, because I've just published my first book, Scars and Guitars Volume 1, Conversations from the World of Heavy Metal and Beyond. You can expect to read features with members of Death, Morbid Angel, Carcass, Napalm Death. The list goes on. There are so many in there. I even managed to have a chat with guitar great Al Di Meola. That made it in there as well. E-versions are only available. It's $10.99, depending on the market that you're in. It so it fluctuates. $10.99 in Australia, I think, is about $7.99 US. And look, if you do buy it, please hit me up, because I want to personally thank you for doing so. It's available at all of the usual marketplaces, Amazon, etc. That's it for now. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it is a very goodbye for now.